So again, warm greetings. As I said, the electricity was out at home today, and so it was a slow start and a lot of different things to take care of and figure out to come down here to IMC. So this is also continuing this series of Introduction to Mindfulness Meditation. And now we come to the week on emotions. And partly the idea in the sequence is that it's easier to be aware of emotions if we are aware of the body. The more we can be embodied in a direct and simple, relaxed way, the easier it is to get some wisdom and clarity about how to be present for emotions without being excessively caught in them or involved in them or troubled by them, and to be aware of the body. It can help to be aware of breathing. Of course, breathing doesn't work for everyone as a foundation, but the simple rhythm of breathing in and out, the simplicity of just breathing with maybe relaxing on the exhale and relaxing on the top of the inhale, just so that the breathing is a little bit longer, just slightly longer, not forcefully, almost naturally. The breathing can be relaxing and kind of settles the nervous system. It can be even reassuring at times. And it's a place to go where we can be present for our life without being caught in our thoughts. So for today, I want to say that what makes mindfulness sacred, at least for the way my understanding or my approach to this word sacred, is when there's no outside. Nothing is excluded from awareness. There's a way in which awareness has space, has room, has the ability, has the wisdom to include everything within it. And of course, some emotions are quite difficult, but to discover how to include them in a caring way, in an open way, so that wisdom can arise, so that we can see that every emotion is in somehow way connected to something profound within. Sometimes the emotion might be maladaptive, adapted poorly, or to something that's really profound about ourselves. And so the simple art of just recognizing we're thinking and not being pulled into thoughts is the art of mindfulness. And we'll go through this in the course of the week, but for today, let's keep it simple. Recognizing and leaving it at that, just recognizing when we're thinking and keeping it super simple, just recognizing, and then returning to the breathing, returning to the body. So, gently assume a meditation posture. And to close your eyes. And whatever way is grounding for you here and now in the body, let yourself be grounded. If that's the breathing, take a few long, slow, deep breaths. If there's a more direct way to the body than through breathing, you might use that. And for breathing in deeply, relaxing, long relaxation as you exhale. Letting your breathing return to normal. And continue on the exhale, relaxing your body. Maybe different parts of the body. Relaxing the thinking mind, whatever tension or pressure is associated with thinking. Physical sensations of pressure, tension, contraction, tightness. On the exhale, imagine your mind is like waves, like a surface of a lake. And as you exhale and relax, the waves on the lake flatten out, and the lake surface becomes calm. And now, in the simplest possible way, the easiest possible way, if you're thinking, recognize it as such. Maybe with a simple word, thinking. How the word is said or imagined in the mind is easeful, matter of fact. The recognition is maybe free of any attitude about thinking or preferences around thinking, opinions about it being there. Just almost like you hear a bird singing in the trees nearby. You hear or know there are thoughts happening. And then begin again with your breathing. And the exercise this morning is to discover how simple you can recognize thinking when you're thinking. And then to begin again with your breathing. Maybe every exhale you recognize your thinking. And then begin again with the inhale. If thinking is in the background and it's easy to stay with your breathing, no need to recognize that you're thinking. Only if you lose touch with breathing, or if the thinking predominates. Recognize if you're thinking. The exercise is to recognize that as simply as you can. And then to begin again with your breathing. And then to bring this meditation session to an end, to first, for a few moments, continue the exercise of recognizing your thoughts as simply thinking. The content of the thoughts for this exercise doesn't matter. Just know that you're thinking, whether it's in words or images. And then bring to mind people in your life, maybe people for whom, for these few moments, you can remember or think about, recall with the same simplicity, just simply to know them without any extra ideas, preferences, desires, aversions. Simply know them. And maybe with the idea that this simplicity of knowing, remembering, thinking about, is a means by which goodwill can flow in an uncomplicated way. simple goodwill, well-wishing, care and love and kindness. May these people that you think about, may they be well. May they be happy. May they be safe. May they be peaceful. May they be free. And may your goodwill, in its simplest form, so simple there's no need for now to act on it, spread out across the world in all directions. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free. Thank you. So hello and welcome to this Monday morning's introduction to mindfulness meditation. We're now in the fourth week to do thinking, and we just had a meditation before this that I was happy to do. I think I arrived a little bit unsettled, and maybe I spoke a little bit in a confused way at the introduction about what we're doing this week. There was no electricity at home and other issues going on at home, so to get down here this morning, there were a lot of steps involved and in the dark. So, so thinking. There's a excuse me. So thinking. There's not a few meditators who feel challenged by their thinking, and there's not a few people who are challenged because of their thinking. Some people are troubled by the fact that they're thinking in meditation and feel like that's wrong, and kind of trying to bat them away. And some people are not troubled by the fact of their thinking, but they're troubled by what they're thinking. And their thoughts can sometimes have a huge impact on our mood, our state of mind. And so in mindfulness meditation, we're looking to become wise about thinking. We're not trying to get rid of thinking, And we're not trying to um, judge our thoughts. We don't have to be critical of them in a certain way. We're trying to understand how to be with thinking that serves us the best, that is respectful for ourselves and our thoughts, and that allows us to source our thinking in some of the deepest place within. And this language of sourcing, I think it's maybe an industrial term. When you source material, you're looking for the material in which to build something or to make something, the place to make it. And but we can do that with ourselves. We source our thinking. Where is the source from which we're thinking? And sometimes the source, the origin, the place of thinking, is not really so deeply connected within, even though the content of the thoughts affects all of who we are. And it's possible to find a source within, to source our thinking in some profound place within, that if we think from that place, that this will have a very different effect on our mood, our state of mind, and our relationships to this world of ours. And so the way to become wise about thinking, and included in mindfulness, begins by understanding that we're not going to be the enemy of thinking. That thinking is part of what we can be mindful of. It isn't that we stay, and this is the advantage of the kind of mindfulness practice we're teaching here. We're not limiting attention to only breathing. Some meditation techniques, which are quite effective in their own way, can focuses only on a narrow subset of our human experience. And sometimes people use that to get concentrated, absorbed in that subset, like just the breathing itself. But in doing so, we're not being inclusive of the full range of what it means to be a human being, the full range of human experience. And the brilliance of Buddhist mindfulness practice is that it can be inclusive of everything. Nothing is outside of its range. And as long as we're being mindful of, then there's a place of freedom. We can find freedom. We can find balance, equanimity, wisdom. If we're mindful by anything, if the mindfulness is shaped by our emotions, shaped by our thinking, then we don't find the same degree of freedom and wisdom. So it isn't. So the thinking is not sourced in our emotions. Our life is not sourced in our thinking, but rather we discover a different way of holding our thinking, holding our emotions, holding our bodily experience. And over time, as we begin learning about how to be mindful, it comes a point where we recognize everything that we experience can be held by mindfulness, held in awareness. Everything is something we can be mindful of. And because we understand that the act of mindfulness, of awareness, is a certain kind of freedom in and of itself. The act of mindfulness is not being entangled or caught or reactive. It's just a clear recognition, simple recognition, this is what's happening. And I remember when I came to this understanding, that first it was theoretical, and the understanding was, wow, in theory I could have this mindfulness that I was learning, directed or inclusive of everything in my human experience. And if that's the case, then I can be free in all experiences. And I became so happy. And it was kind of like a revelation for me. And say, wow, to be able to live with that freedom, wow, that's possible now. Now I understand what it takes. And that gave me a lot of enthusiasm then for really relying on mindfulness, having faith in it, as opposed to having faith in my thoughts, in my beliefs. I stopped having faith in thinking worrisome thoughts about the future. I spent a lot of time thinking about how challenging things were going to be in the future for me. I no longer had so much faith in reviewing the past and the resentments I had, and that reviewing them and living them was something that had tremendous value, which, of course, I didn't actively think that way, but I was behaving that way. The mind that's what it was doing. And when I really started to have faith in mindfulness, then I began to understand that, in contrast to that, how I invested myself in all these areas of life, how to be, how to think, what to think about, as if those were the important place to live. And learn to shift it to something else, just mindfulness of. So we want to learn how to be mindful of thinking, not just to let go of it. And part of that is so we can have a different relationship to thoughts, to hold thoughts lightly and openly without being caught in them. And also because our thinking is just the tip of the iceberg. Thinking is often very deeply connected to other parts of ourselves. And if we're lost in our thoughts, caught up in our thoughts, or think that navigating and negotiating the world is only through our thinking, then we're riding on the tip of that iceberg. And there's a whole big thing to explore and to discover below that tip. And that's when we kind of enter into the kind of a big fullness of who we are. And so one example of this that I was trying to say earlier, but I didn't quite manage, is it's easier to be aware of thinking when you know how to be present for emotions. It's also easier to be aware of emotions if you know how to be aware of thinking, because the two are so deeply intertwined. It's so easy, it's fascinating to watch how we think certain thoughts and the emotion follows. Other times we have certain emotions and the thinking gets changed accordingly. And so to learn to how to see these more clearly and see that influence back and forth is a way of stepping back and not being in that exchange. It's easier to be aware of emotions and also thinking if we know how to be mindful of the body. And the body is a rich area of attention. Our body is not just a corporal, physical event. It's deeply connected to our deep life. And then it's easier to do all of it in the simplicity of breathing. Breathing is a way of protecting ourselves from being swept away in endless thoughts that spin and spin and spin. So for today, the exercise, the suggestion was to experiment with how simple you could know that you're thinking. And simple doesn't mean that you're condoning, participating, condemning your thoughts. It just means you step back, almost like you step back 2 feet, 2 steps, and you recognize, oh, that is thinking, with the recognition not caught up in the thoughts. So we're using kind of a thought to recognize that we're thinking. So it might seem like a paradox or confusing, but the thought of recognition is really simple and not sticky, not caught in, stuck with whatever we're thinking. This is a powerful exercise if you can get a hang of it. One thing that might help you with this is if you can also begin noticing if you're thinking in words or thinking in images. Some people do predominantly one or the other. Some people do a combination of them, maybe at different times. And But some people have never considered this for themselves. And but if you can clearly recognize, oh, I think more in words. And where's the source of those words in the mind? Where do you have a sense those words are being spoken in the mind? And if you have a location, then you can step back and say, oh, I'm thinking words. If you're mostly thinking through images, where are those being projected? Maybe a little bit in front of you. And then, oh, I'm thinking images. That's what's happening. So as you go along today, through your life, look for opportunities to, in a regular way, to recognize thinking. And recognize whether you're thinking in words or images. And see if you can, how simple you can recognize that you're thinking without being caught in the thinking. Almost like you've stepped away and looking back without being in the midst of the fray. So thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you, being part of this again tomorrow.